Welcome to Conversations in Connectivity. I'm Ryan Carlson, your host. This is a podcast for IoT professionals and the IoT curious that find themselves responsible for growing, executing, or educating others about what to expect when you're connecting products and services to the internet. In this interview, we're talking about connectivity of a different sort, stepping up your networking game. No, not computer networking, but professional networking, the cornerstone behind personal and professional success. It's the same mindset for intentional networking that happens to follow the same motions that you'll find in companies with a strong culture of innovation. Learn about building your network, the power of micro partnerships, and what happens when we assume technology is the hardest part, when in fact, people are the source of the biggest challenges IoT projects face. This podcast is brought to you by Soracom, a global connectivity provider that companies use to spend less on cellular data services by using less cellular data. Say goodbye to second-guessing which carrier gets you the best coverage and get multi-carrier connectivity with automatic failover with a single SIM or eSIM. Learn more at soracom.io. Today our conversation is with Kurt Schmidt, a person who I met at first was a project manager, but now a president and partner at Foundry, a digital strategy design and development agency with offices in Minneapolis and I saw New York City.
Yep, we opened up a small office in New York. We do a lot of work in the fintech space. So, you kind of have to be in New York.
New York City. And there's still more P's to put to your prolific profile, which is you're also a podcaster with the Schmidt List. You've gone on 5 years now of having interviews with, crazy enough, a lot of people that I know. So overlapping social circles. And now you get to add one more P, which is published author with the Little Book of Networking, now available on Amazon.
That's right.
So the question that I ask a lot of people is, what is your relationship with connectivity? And I think this is a double entendre here.
Yes.
Right. So I would love to have that opening question and turn it over to you, Kurt.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. I really appreciate you having me on the show. Big fan. For me, connectivity, I've learned a long time ago, there's never any technical problems. It's all people problems. It's all communication problems, right? And the same goes whether or not you're talking about tech or you're talking about humans in a lot of ways. So for me, what I noticed was back in when the pandemic first hit and a lot of layoffs were happening, I was doing a lot of coaching of people who were looking for their next line of work. And a lot of people were used to the old school way of just you see a job posting, you fill out a resume and you send it into the black hole. And then you hope and pray somebody picks you. And then
pick me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You hope and pray somebody picks you, but it's not really that. And anyways, it's not a great system. So I learned a long time ago that the best way to get the job that you really want is through the people that you know. So one thing I noticed when I was doing a lot of this coaching is a lot of people, just their networks were not great. Either they were maybe just coming out of school, or maybe they had worked for a large corporation for 20 years and just had gotten laid off. And both of those people were in very similar spots when it came to their network. So I put together a quick guide, a handbook, if you will, on how to sort of really improve your networking and make it part of everything that you do instead of just a one-time event where you slap on the sticker that says, "Hello, my name is," and go and meet with folks. And so that's been a big part of the last few years, is working on that book and getting and building my network too.
That's actually a really interesting point. I'd like to go back to just that idea that there was all of the layoffs in tech, and I think we've all at some point been impacted, either been part of a layoff or had part of our team go away as part of a layoff, and that's always really difficult. And I think the thing that I've seen, and you and I have experienced too, is when tech had so many people in the big clubhouse. You had the free food, you had the pets, you had the games, and you would have people that would talk about when they had the conversation with HR, when there was a reduction or they left, their social circle, their network, their friends, their after hours, after school activities, their built-in support network, their emotional support network. Who do you get to turn to for career advice or for help planning that birthday thing or whatever it is
Yeah.
when all your eggs are in one basket.
Exactly.
And that network becomes very, very small and distant. So I see a lot of businesses or startups in the technology space. You get these companies where it's even almost like these inbred groups of people, like, oh yeah, all 6 of us work together at this company, and then we're going to grab 3, 4, now 5, now 12 people from this other one. And are you really trying to live in an echo chamber? And how do you validate what you've learned in your experience? Sorry, I'm kind of rambling because
No,
it's like
I love what you're saying, because I address this specifically in the book, is that, especially as I mentioned, those people that work at a place for 20 years and then leave, they focused a lot of their networking on internal networks, right? So just you were just talking about, right? You're working in even if it's a small to medium sized company, you're working so closely with all these people, you're getting to know them, you're building trust with them, they are your network. But then if for some reason you leave or are asked to leave, that network just kind of goes poof, just like you described. And it's not because those people don't care about you or didn't appreciate the time with you. They have to get back to work. They don't have time, or they have not made a priority for anybody outside of the business to be a part of their network. And that is a failing in general, in my opinion, in our culture, because that's where I've learned that companies really thrive when ideas are brought in from the outside, not just generally innovation just happening in a bubble on the inside. Is that if you do have that network, I think it makes you more desirable, because some people say, well, I don't want, if I'm out networking, my boss is going to think I'm looking for another job. And I was like, fine. Like, but you got to let them know you do it because it's part of you building your career. It's making your company better because you're bringing out ideas from the outside back into the organization to improve your role, which there go vis-a-vis concordingly improves their job. So the networking part is really important, because I found that it's not just about career development, but it's about, or I say, John, about finding another job, but it's about true career development, becoming better at what you're passionate about.
Well, it's enrichment, right? Like you said something about a culture, like networking. I've seen networking as a culture of convenience.
Yes.
Right? Like we network with the people that we work with on a day-to-day basis because it's easy, because we've got the water cooler and the lunch. But you know, having been part of peer groups and mentor groups and going out to these various things, you get these weird looks like, listen, if you're not in sales, like, what are you doing going and talking to other people? Right. Yep. And even then, like, when you've got the sales name tag on, people are like, oh gosh, you can smell the desperation a mile away. Old Gil's got to move this next deal, right? Like, exactly. So my question for you is, how do you, if you're in sales or if you're seeking just to enrich your network, how do you keep the stink of desperation off of you? How can you, as a seller or even a company owner, go into these situations without turning the conversation sour?
I love where you're going with this, Ryan, because I love how you put it. How do I go into these conversations? So how do I go into these conversations is with the correct mindset. The correct mindset is, I am there not to extract value, but to deliver value. So when I go to these events, I'm not there to ask people for something. I'm not there. I am there. I look at it like I am Santa showing up with a bag full of gifts. And those gifts might be access to the people in my job or my company or my team. That might be access to people in my network. It could be access to our products and services, or it could be access to, even if it's a side gig that I have, maybe I'm in a band and they need somebody to play at their wedding. I don't know. For me, it is about a mindset of showing up of, I am there to deliver value, not extract value. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not going to go with an ask. You need to have an ask of some kind, because that's what too many people do, is that you don't let people know what you're looking for. So that breeds distrust with folks, right? So what you should be able to do is go to these events either as a salesperson or as just an individual contributor, and be able to say, you know, hey, I have this, I do this, I work at this place, and I am looking for this thing. And then what are you looking for? And be intentional about those conversations, because then people will build trust quicker, because they know that, okay, this person has told me what they have to offer, and they have told me what they are looking for themselves, right? I mean, it could be you're saying, I'm looking for other people that work in my industry. It couldn't be, it doesn't have to be, I'm looking for a sale of some kind.
Right,
So
right.
so for me, it really is about a mindset and being intentional, instead of just going to be like, well, I have this role, I'm going to this event where other people like my role has, so I should be in that mix. That's not a great way to network.
I'd say this is why we always talk about in marketing that word of mouth
Yeah.
is the best marketing there is.
Yes.
And this is one of those opportunities. Now, I personally associate to, in that world of the tipping point, the maven. Like, I love to pull in as much information as possible, leaning into that curiosity, the input strengths finder element, right? And and like to share who you need to talk about networking. Kurt Schmidt, you should look him up on LinkedIn, or Sherman Bausch. This guy, he knows so much about X, Y, and Z. Think about you building a team. He's going to have your answers for you. And you have these individuals that I I'm not working with them right now,
Yeah.
but it's that outside world appeal. Now, one of the things that we talk a lot about here on this podcast is the creation of products, whether it's a connected product or whomever. I mean, the stuff you guys do at Foundry, like the prototype you made with the Unity engine for coming up with a new vehicle interface.
Yeah.
By the way, super cool. What a neat
Yeah.
little way to play around in user experience design. But things like that, you're trying to break new ground. You need to get feedback from people. But
Yep.
I don't see connected products as just a hardware device with a radio in it.
No.
You know, they are digital interactions. There's artificial
Yep.
intelligence and machine learning engines.
Yep.
There's pulling information from the website that it already exists.
Exactly.
And then there's a lot of digital innovation that occurs to inform physical design.
Yep.
Right? Like the Unity engine project that Foundry worked on, where you
That's right.
built that new space age user interface. So if you haven't seen it, you guys should check it out. Go to the Foundry website and look that in the case studies area. I thought it was really neat, but I nerd out on that kind of thing.
Thanks. That was a cool project.
So when you all are living in the echo chamber, we're bringing this back to our teams. If all I'm doing is hiring people that are going to look like me, sound like me, and use the same shorthand.
Yes.
I think the biggest danger in hiring is companies that are looking for people that are like them, one of us. Like,
right. Yeah.
Oh, that Kurt guy, I think we could make him into our company kind of material. Exactly. Versus, what does Kurt have that we don't have, where he could bring his uniqueness?
Well, yeah. And again, you look at the people who are sometimes founders of these organizations, right? So they're either business people that have tripped and fallen into an opportunity in a way, right? And so they have to put together a team, and that team, it's like a grocery list. You need a certain type of engineer, you need a certain type of person that understands connected devices, you need this type of you need a hardware person, so you're putting together this laundry list, but you're not doing it intentionally, where you're trying to build a culture around these things. You're trying to slot things into a kind of a shopping list, right? Or you're someone who's launched one of these things, and you're an engineer, and you kind of you really understand engineering, but maybe you don't understand all the other important pieces to things, right? That's why we see a lot of times in IoT and connected devices that user experience is not necessarily the top priority, because a lot of times it has an engineering focus. It's here to solve an engineering problem. And if it comes with a training manual, that's fine, right? Even though these things should never come with a training manual, they should be that easy to use. But to an engineer, a training manual is an acceptable sort of approach to teaching someone how to use something they've built. So again, I think it all dives back to culture and the culture of innovation that you're creating, because that's what it is. Innovation doesn't come from brains. It comes from building a culture around innovation. Apple did not create the iPhone and so on and so forth because they just hired really smart people. They created a culture that's surrounded in a vision of that beautiful design and solving problems for the world was what they were there to do. So to me, it really comes back to culture and being intentional in the team that you're building.
So I'd like you to put yourself in the role of someone who's coaching a technology company founder or owner, or someone who has this great idea, and they're going to some industry events, they're going to go to some professional events, and they have two objectives. So I'm going to help with this part. The objective number one is they want to learn about the market that they want to sell into, right? And so clearly there's going to be some of that product market fit, a little bit of early guerrilla research.
Yep.
So that's my first thing. That's maybe my secret goal. And the other one is looking for people that can help me know what I don't know. Like what are the problems that are around the next corner that I haven't seen because I haven't built a connected product yet. Maybe I've been a metal bender, or I've built embedded circuitry, and I've done some of those things, but there's these extra moving parts. So
yeah,
I'm setting the stage. I've got some of my goals. What would your recommendations be to me as I go to industry events and shows, things like that?
Yeah, the thing for me is that, again, back to the networking piece, go with an intention, go with a specific ask, something that's repeatable, that you can ask people over and over again for. And that ask could be, can you introduce me to more people like you, right? So one of the things that I see people do too often in those situations, Ryan, is they spend a lot of time and they run into that one person that seems like they really know what they're talking about. And they're one of those types of people that you're like, this is somebody who could really help me with what I'm doing. One of the first things I think is, who do you know that's like you? Not, how can I collect you like a Pokemon, right? Like, I'm just going to collect you. I want to know, I want access to your network, because you're in a space, obviously, of really smart, talented people. I bet there's other people in your network that I should be surrounding myself with. So back to your point, Ryan, like if I'm out looking for opportunities to build this sort of thing, my eventual goal is to surround myself with people who have the capabilities of helping me achieve that goal. And I might not be able to hire them there and that day, but if I can start to collect them into my network and start to utilize my conversation and my relationship with them in a way that where I'm bringing them value and I can ask them questions and start to bring value. The whole idea is really to plant that seed and start to grow over time. So it isn't necessarily about what can I go and extract at that moment, but it's how can I go there and plant a seed that in 6 to 9 months is going to get me the network that I need to help me sort of take my business to the next step, or my product idea to the next step. It's not just about that one-time event. That one-time event is just a great day for planting. That's all.
I really like the question of, could you introduce me to other people that are similar to you? You've got some fresh opinions. I like the cut of your jib.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
And I would like to see the cut of other people's jibs.
Right.
I hope that's not weird, but yes.
Whatever, Simpsons, right? The question that I have is, how do you avoid getting put into that zone of resistance?
Yeah.
Because there are some asks that kind of put you on edge, and you're like, whoa. Like, hey, I don't suppose you've got budget, timeline, and authority for like, what?
By the way, and decision-making power.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. No, to me, what's been interesting is that because I know that at those events, like, well, let's go back to the events that you're talking about, conferences or things of that nature. I should know walking in that it's usually not decision makers that are at those events.
Yep.
So, but the people who are there are people that the company trusts enough to go out and represent them. So I should understand very clearly, these are influencers in those organizations. So building relationships with the influencers can be almost as beneficial, or even more beneficial sometimes, than building with the actual decision maker or the person who has budget approval and all the things you just mentioned. So if I can build a relationship with that influencer, they can be the person at the meeting when I can't be at the meeting, saying we should talk to Ryan about these offerings that they've they've got. I spent a couple hours with him, and we've been emailing back and forth for the last month about this and that and the other thing. And he's provided me with a lot of resources and a lot of information. But they also do this thing. We should have them come along for the ride. So again, I'm there to build trust and build a relationship over time, right? And that's the key point, is I'm trying to build a relationship, because if you look at it like, I have the colleagues that I work with and I have friends. Like, these are people I invite to my wedding, and these are people that I spend 8 hours, 10 hours a day with in work. In the middle is this gray area, and we try to make sure that these things don't touch too much, right? Like, every once in a while people transition, right? But in this gray area, what we have is what I like to call micro partnerships that you establish with people. The goal is that, just like JFK said, is that a rising tide lifts all boats, right? So in this gray area, what we want to do is build micro partnerships that says, hey, Ryan, you and I just met at this thing. I do this thing. I have this offering that could make you look really good in your organization if you were to bring me in to do some of that stuff. And you're like, man, yeah, our team is not pulling their weight, and I could look really good if I pulled in a team that was awesome like this. But I don't know if they're that awesome. I don't really trust them. And I'm looking at you going, well, but I don't know if you'd really bring me in or whatever. But why don't we build that micro partnership and learn from each other over time, whether that's a possibility or not, and do it intentionally, right? Is that we like each other. We got a good vibe, right? Yep. Let's try to find a way to work together. It might not be today. It might not be 3 years from now, but it probably will be someday.
Isn't that funny though, how often the person you're talking to today is some senior vice president tomorrow?
Exactly, right? That, Ryan. And that's why you need to maintain your network over time. It's not just about that one networking event or that one conference. We need to be intentional about maintaining our network over time. So how do we maintain our network? Well, we stay in touch with people to find out, have your asks changed? Have your needs changed? Has the value that I can bring you changed? Do I have a new certification? Do I have a new client that needs this type of work, or these other things? We like each other. We want to work together. We think we're both smart, and it'd be great to help each other out. So how do we do that? Well, we got to stay top of mind with people. And that's where social media, things like LinkedIn and other ways to stay connected with people, that's what those things are for, in my mind. They're not for other than staying top of mind with folks, reminding people that you're out there and the value that you bring.
So understanding that people are bad computers, we can't stack too many commands all at once.
Yeah, yes.
If I were someone who wanted to start making some micro partnerships, but taking several baby steps, what would your recommendations as a coach? Yeah. What would 3 baby steps be? Step 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan, for asking that, because what I've done in terms of baby steps, and I describe it in the book, is I have a simple spreadsheet where I put a list of names, and no more than 5 or 10 people that maybe are in my network and that I feel are genuinely people I can learn from, people who are going somewhere, people who have something to offer, and that I also feel a kinship with, and I get the same sort of reciprocal feeling when I'm speaking with them, that they also get value with me, or else they're just very good at pretending that they do. So I put them in a list, and then I put in another column. I put the date that I last connected with them. And then I put a formula in that column that says at 60 days, this turns yellow, and at 90 days, it turns red. And so with that list, I just constantly have that reminder that tells me, hey, it's been 90 days. You haven't checked in with Ryan for a while. And so I might shoot a quick note. Hey, just checking in, Ryan, to seeing how you're doing. I'm still looking for this. Are you still looking for that? We should get coffee sometime. It'd be great. And then I go down that list. I make sure that I keep updated with all of those people. And then over time, I might build that list out. I might have subsections to that list. And so for me, it's really just about having a simple system that reminds you that you should check in with this person. This is the value that they can bring to you. And you already should know what value, so you shouldn't need to list your own value, but you can list out kind of what they're looking for. And then a simple date. and just stay top of mind with those people. And that's the simplest way to get started.
I think I need to put my mom on that list just to remind her. But it's not make it like 90 days. But you know, has a month gone by? Have I checked in on her? How's it going, Mom?
Oh wow, has it been a month already?
Yeah. Maybe even dial that in, set some goals. Right.
I know.
So that's just another category.
Yeah,
right?
There's another call where I try to explain what I do for a living, but it's not working. I don't know why.
So baby step 1 sounds like create a list.
Yep.
Step 2 is categorize it and set some thresholds for keeping up. Is there kind of like a last, now that you've got the list, now that you have got the commitment or at least a system for keeping things warm, then what? What's that next step?
Yeah, the next step for me is actually a personal journey. I've got this sort of group that I really want to deliver value to. What can I do personally to start improving on the value that I can bring to these individuals? Right. So I look at myself as sort of an army of one here, right? I am not my company. I am not my employer. My career is about where I want to go and what legacy I want to leave. So for me, it's really about, now that I've got this sort of goal, like obviously if you work in hardware IoT, there's lots of certifications or different things you can go for to get better at that. But if you want to become a leader in that group, or maybe you've met some other people who are vice presidents or people who work in marketing or these other areas of the business that are very attractive to you, and you're starting to network from them and learn from them, now is the time, holding up the mirror and saying, what can I do to improve my value that I'm bringing to my network, and start to work on that over time, versus what has my company told me that is of value for them. Right now, I've got a good sense of what is happening in the outside world. I already understand what's happening at my company. It's pretty clear that, what to bring value to that company might be, right? And if it's not clear, and if it's just take less vacation is bringing value to them, then your network's even more important, isn't it?
It sure is. That reminds me of the value of having customer conversations in a workplace environment. Like I find myself, it's not about winning an argument. It's never about being right.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of speaking from a personal opinion, I think that this is the way it is. It's of the last 7 technical onboarding calls that I listened to, the recordings, people said this 6 out of 7 times. It's kind of hard to argue with that, right? And I think the same thing is when there's peer groups, right? Like, yeah, I went to this thing, and of the 10 CMOs that I spoke with, 8 of them all mentioned this is a common thing now that we're all struggling with.
Yes.
Like, okay, so it's not just my opinion. Opinions and assholes. We all got them.
Right.
All right.
Well, but that's the point there, Ryan. That's what I'm trying to get across to people, is that, yes, there are events, there are groups, there are user groups, there's online clubs and things that you can join. But why wait for someone to create one that's tailored for Ryan? Why can't you just create your own? And again, like I said, these are micro partnerships. So this shouldn't impact, because I have people that say like, well, I can't do networking like that. I have a family. I'm like, you just are not prioritizing stuff. I know you're binging The Last of Us. Like, just take a break from it for a little bit and work on your spreadsheet. Make sure it's updated. Check on somebody on LinkedIn. Have they changed jobs lately? Send them a quick message. You've got time to do this type of building of these micro partnerships. Don't be lazy and wait for some group to show up and say, well, this is a leadership group that you can join for only $1,000 a month, and now you can have access to peer groups. Like, I'll just create my own. Why do I need that?
Right. That's absolutely right. And I know this is the farthest from technology, but it has everything to do with professional development and living and everything. I made it wasn't an oath, that's a little bit strong, a concerted effort to stop saying the word busy.
Yes.
Like people say, oh, how's it been? Like, I haven't heard from you in a long while. Or have you happened to do XYZ? Did you see XYZ movie? Rather than like, oh, gosh, I've been so busy.
Yeah.
I've even typed it out. And then I back it up and I go, I did not prioritize seeing that. Right? There's a big difference, right? Like we all have time to do whatever the heck we want.
Yes.
So being too busy isn't the problem. It's we are
And
not
again,
prioritizing.
See that, and what you're talking about there is a mindset, Ryan, and that's what's important in networking, but it's also important in innovation, because if you think you know the answer, you're probably wrong. But some of the best innovators I know that they know nothing, right? And so I can't just walk around not knowing anything and be an innovator, right? But I don't remember who said this, but if you never ship anything, are you an innovator? Well, no. I mean, you
Right.
haven't innovated anything. So you've got to ship if you're going to be an innovator, right? So if you can do that by yourself, Godspeed, like great. But it's pretty rare, especially in the complex systems world that you and I both live in, where you can do that on your own. So in order to be an innovator, you need to have the ability to rally people, to build a team, to build a network, and to rally people around an idea. And that idea, again, like I said, could be your career, it could be a product, right? But it's a skill set you learn over time.
We've brought this all full circle about wanting to get all the information you need to get things across the finish line. And we started with connectivity, with technology, and you and I both agree that 99% of the time it's never a technology problem. The reason why products struggle or teams have challenges or we don't quite ship the project or whatever it is, it's their people problems.
Exactly.
It could be access to information. They don't have a big enough network. We've lived in our own microcosm for so long. We didn't know that the rest of the world moved on and technology did solve this problem.
Mm-hmm.
So in regards to your role, having been working with entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and even large companies that are solving complex technology problems, specifically in that connected space with connectivity, if I could get you to reflect for one moment, if you had all 5 infinity stones and could snap your finger and make one thing change about connectivity that would make life easier for everyone, what just happened after that snap?
It's that people tried to solve the problem for the end user before they tried to solve the problem for the company.
Which company?
Any company.
So is this they didn't think through what the business needed versus the user?
Yeah, they thought through what the business opportunity was and not the problem they were solving for the end user, for the customer.
I love it.
So that's what happens too often, is that these organizations think they're so smart, right? But you and I both know no product survives its first impact with a customer. But sometimes ego drives a lot of stuff when it comes to innovation and engineering and design, is that I know better than the customers, right? I know what Henry Ford said, which he actually didn't say, which was, if I would have asked them what they wanted, they would have said faster horses, right? And so he built a car. And so a lot of entrepreneurs might have that idea of like, I will come to the masses and I will help them understand. You're right. I'm Elon Musk and I know what Twitter really needs and stuff. That's all ego stuff. There's no experience. There's no data there. There's no metrics there. Nobody's spoken to an actual customer. And that's really, like I said, the real problem is that the best products are products that solve a problem first. And that then, however they're implemented, technology or whatever, or strings or hooks that can hang my Christmas lights specifically on my type of gutters, however the solution is, that's secondary.
Yeah, because the customer is both a buyer and a user, and they're rarely the same person.
Yes, exactly. Right. I remember working on some IoT projects specifically for refrigeration needs. Right. And a lot of the things that people were thinking about was, in all the conversations I was in, they were always thinking about what data did they need? What data did they need? And what data did they need to capture? And not once in the conversation were they thinking the customer would actually use the device that they were creating in order to get them the data that they needed. They just assumed like, well, I'll just tell them they have to have this device. It's like, what benefit is there for them to use the device? All the benefit is for you to gather this data. Like, nobody's going to just start using a device because you need it.
Right. Yeah, that is always fascinating, right? Like I immediately start going like, oh, refrigeration. So at what point are you legally obligated to throw food away
Yeah,
because it was
right.
too warm?
Yep,
How
yep,
long of a period of time was that and what temperature?
yep.
And
Exactly.
then,
But again,
right?
if I don't provide a solution, whether it be the trucking company or the actual long hauler or whoever has to actually manipulate in order to make that correct, if there's no value to it to them, why would they use it? And then your data is going to be bad anyway. So in my mind, yes, you do have that end problem of like, we need to understand how long these pizzas can be in this truck at a certain temperature or something. But if the trucker isn't running the equipment in a way that provides that data,
Mhm.
then it's all moot, right? And I've seen it over and over again, Ryan. I can't tell you how many times people have thought they were so smart and they were going to capture all this data. We worked with an agriculture, ag tech company, and they were like, yeah, well, all these people in the field will have these tablets now, and they'll put in this stuff, and then we'll have all this data. And then they were like, nobody's putting the stuff in. Why is this working? And they were all up in arms. And they had actually hired us to come in and do an audit or an assessment of what was going on. And we went out and we found that nobody had gone out and actually talked to the people that were working the fields, because 80% of them, English was not their first language. So all the buttons to do things had English words. So that immediately needed to be changed to iconography, right, instead of words. The next thing was is they're out in the sun, and the way that the screens were built were all gray, so there's not enough high contrast for them to even see what they're looking at. So they spent all this money and all this time, but never actually put it in the hands of the people that will use it and then watch them try and use it. They just were so smart and so intelligent that they were going to solve this problem for the farmer, they were going to provide this thing, and they were promised the farmer was going to do this thing, but the people couldn't even use it. So that's my point, Ryan, about why the idea of connectivity and going out and building relationships with folks is not just about networking to build our career. It's about also how to change how the world works.
Yeah, you're not wrong. It's not just the users and the buyers, but who are the beneficiaries
Yep.
for the buyer? Like, what is it? Who benefits when we buy this thing? And
Yes.
then who are the influencers for the users, right? The supervisor or the installer or the person who has to pick up the phone. Well, they're not the one actually touching the thing.
Yep. 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 And you I know you worked with an organization, there was fleet management and all these things. But like I said, very rarely did people talk to the people that actually were in the machines doing the work. It was just about pulling
Yeah.
in cold data so I can find ways to squeeze more efficiency out of things
So we
instead
can
of trying to
optimize
solve.
the insights.
Yes,
Optimize
exactly.
the insights.
Yep,
Get the
exactly. And
insights and optimize.
exactly. And so that's why I see so many startups fail in their first outing, is because they found a problem, they think they understand what the user needs, and then they go out and try to solve that problem. Now, one of the terrible reasons that I've seen people make that choice, Ryan, is because they don't want their secret awesome idea to get out. So they can't go and tell people and talk to people about their idea. So they've got to keep it hidden. I remember getting a call from a senior level decision maker and saying, you want to come out, sign this NDA because I want to talk to you about this idea. And we were like, cool, okay. And they went on to describe this thing, and I was like, it's already a thing, and here I could show you this. And they were like, oh, okay, well, I was like, didn't you do any research? They're like, well, I didn't want to put that into Google because then that's where they could steal your ideas. And I was like, oh, I see. So I forgot my tinfoil hat is what I forgot. I see. So I'm telling you, like, truth is stranger than fiction, right? So if you need to get your ideas out there and get them in the hands of people that it's actually going to impact and benefit, if you can do that, you can build a business around anything.
And make sure you got a couple small micro partnerships on the side of people who are exposed to lots of things, so you can
That's right. Yep.
run it by
Yep.
them beforehand.
Yep.
Well, Kurt, thank you so much for taking time to talk about networking, connecting people, connecting ideas, and then connecting the things behind the people is ultimately what we're all trying to do.
Yep.
And I know that the future is bright for technology. It ain't going away.
Yep.
Data use is only going up, but the ubiquitous nature of technology, it shrinking into the background and being invisible, is now the gold standard, right?
Right.
Don't make anyone think the best data collection is the one that no one is actively trying to do, and it just happens as the course of doing whatever job you were already planning on doing, right?
Yep.
So how could people learn more about you and your point of view?
Yeah, so I'm most active on LinkedIn. So if you go and search for Kurt Schmidt, you can find me pretty easily there. My company is called Foundry. It's foundrymakes.com. So because we make stuff, right? So foundrymakes.com. And the book is the Little Book of Networking. So it's you can just search on Amazon or Google and it'll get you there. And I'm really excited about it. So yeah, if people want to connect with me, find me on LinkedIn.
Kurt, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Ryan. I really big fan, and I appreciate you giving me this opportunity to speak to your audience.
Absolutely. You're part of my micro partnerships, so I'm going to have to change that red to green in the spreadsheet that I'll be creating shortly. All right, thank you. I think I need to put my mom on that list. Has a month gone by? Have I checked in on her? How's it going, Mom?
Oh, wow. Has it been a month already?
This podcast episode has been brought to you by Soracom, a cellular network provider that's built specifically for supporting IoT devices with reliable connectivity across urban and rural areas around the world. If you're not happy with the cellular service that you're getting today, experience multi-carrier coverage that benefits from automatic failover with a single SIM or eSIM. Soracom's network is the top choice for intelligent device deployments interested in either conserving cellular data use or enabling secure private networks, which is similar to having your own private APN, but it takes minutes to set up, not the 3 to 12 months that it can take through the carriers, and better yet, it's at a fraction of the cost. This is all possible because cloud engineers and cellular network engineers at Soracom put their heads together to virtualize the packet routing hardware that's responsible for managing and routing data traffic off of a carrier's cellular network and moved it up into the cloud on AWS. Now, this radically changes not only how data can be controlled and delivered, but it means it's possible to enable two-way private networking without expensive per-SIM fees or restrictive contractual commitments. It sounds a little too good to be true, right? Well, it actually does get a bit better. There's no commitment to build out your own secure network over cellular with features and administrative controls that far exceeds what you'd get from a private APN through a single carrier. You can securely transmit device data across multiple carriers for any device with a Soracom SIM or eSIM. Even devices already deployed in the field can be added to your virtual private network with zero-touch provisioning with that Soracom SIM. For those with experience setting up a VPN over cellular, you know how big of a deal this is. We're the first to admit that this is a super complicated topic, but what's great is how the Soracom platform makes the process incredibly simple. Is your application already securely hosted using AWS's virtual private cloud? Do you already have your login credentials for AWS? If so, then you have everything you need to add any devices with the Soracom SIM to your secure network using VPC peering. Basically, making two secure clouds talk to one another. Whether you're on Microsoft Azure or you maintain your own corporate cloud or an on-premise set of servers, Soracom's underlying virtual private gateway service takes out the cost and the complexity of setting up VPN over cellular. Leading companies trust Soracom to connect their IoT devices to cloud platforms and secure corporate networks around the globe. Wherever your deployments take you, experience cellular connectivity built for IoT without a contract today at soracom.io. Signing up for an operator account takes less than a minute, and you can buy Soracom's IoT optimized SIMs or embedded eSIMs directly from your user console or our global distribution partners at DigiKey, Mouser Electronics, or CalChip Connect. One last thing. If you check out the website and you decide you want to talk to someone on Soracom's team of connectivity experts, deep dive a bit, and talk about what you're looking for, if you heard about Soracom here on the podcast, please leave a note in the Contact Us form under Where Did You Hear About Soracom? We'd greatly appreciate it if you'd go ahead and mention the podcast.